Ooh, recording. So this is on the record. Um, I'm Sid, I'm an alcoholic. I love the power of Alcoholics Anonymous because where else in the world can you go and meet yourself day after day after day? I had no idea that's what I was going to do. And I get the gift, every time I get to work with a woman, I get the gift of meeting myself over again, you know, and I get to meet myself in the strangest of places, some of which I thought I'd never go back to. But Ludmila is an absolute joy. She has such positivity and energy and wanting to learn and grow. And I was so privileged when she asked me if I would walk with her through this process. And she has taught me so much in our short year and not quite a half of being together. And I can't imagine my life without her. And so I hope you guys all have the ability to hear her beautiful message and to be able to see yourselves in her. And congratulations, come on up.
Do I have to go like this or can people hear me? Okay, okay. Like this the whole time. Um, hi, my name is Ludmila. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Ludmila. I'm gonna do a timer because I'm gonna try to do like 15, 15, 15. So I'm not all in the, yeah. So I always try to pray before I speak at a meeting. Not all the time, but before at shares or anytime I'm in a meeting, um just because and I just say, God, please guide my thoughts and words and actions. Um yeah, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be good. I'm not gonna cry. And then I started crying before I even started talking. So, yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you, everybody, um, for having me. Thanks, Stanley, for asking me. Um, and yeah, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. I was born in Russia and came from a long line of alcoholism. It was pretty rampant and pretty normalized in my family and my family history. Pretty quickly, my mom married a man in Montana and brought me and my brother over. Um, and my mom is an alcoholic and she's been sober. I'm so grateful for pretty much my whole life ever since I was 6 years old. So I grew up in the rooms of AA. Um, Coming in, I just thought that everybody, like all little kids, just hung out in church basements. Like, I just thought that was the norm. Um, and turns out that's not what happened. And I was so blessed to have this community of people, and I didn't even know. I didn't even know as a kid what was happening or what was going on, but pretty it kind of seeped into me. I am ever since I was a little kid, I think my first drug of choice was people pleasing. Um, I also want to say that my story does include outside issues and outside substances. Um, for the longest time, was like, I'm never going to be like my mom. I'm never going to be an alcoholic. I'm screw that. And so I went into, I'm going to be the best kid I can be. I'm going to get you to like me and I'm going to control everything on the outside so I feel okay. Um, I used to, as a kid, I would go and turn off a light and I'd have to do it with my other hand because it had to be even. And you don't understand, the stereo has to be on an even number because otherwise bad things are going to happen. And you don't understand, I have to think of all the bad things that could happen so that I can prevent them from happening. And it was chaos. It was really scary to live like that as a kid. Um, I um pretty shortly went into high school, and things were good. It was me, my mom, and my brother. And my brother killed himself. And that was the hardest thing that I've experienced in my life. And I think it was a really big shock because, I think there's sometimes this idea that once you get sober, everything's okay. So my mom was sober, and her depression didn't go away. Um, I'm super grateful she's grown so much and continuously grows, but this is a program of action, and more gets revealed, and um I just as part of my story, I didn't feel like I could ever have it um like bad enough. I just felt like there was, ever since I was a little kid, I felt like there was something wrong with me. I, for some reason, came up with this whole idea that I'm actually not human and I'm a robot with like human blood, but they made it to look like I was like, I went through elaborate stories because I just felt different. It just felt different. When I came to America, I would hide under the tables because everybody was so scary. Um and quickly, I would do anything to fit in, but I just never felt um um a part of. And so after my brother died, my perfectionism came rampant. I had dabbled in alcohol a little bit, getting drunk and stuff, but it was not really that bad. I went into college, and I that's when my drinking kind of went far off. I was just going to frat parties and, all these places. And, I even sometimes I'm like, oh, my drinking wasn't that bad. And I was looking at some videos with a friend, and I was just like, it wasn't even the start of the night. We went to a concert, and I was puking in the bathroom. I was like, hey, everybody, and it's funny how my brain is like, but I told myself I'm not an alcoholic. And so to prove that, I got into drugs instead. I started smoking weed every day, multiple times a day, because I'm not an alcoholic. So I can do this, and I'm different. And that pretty quickly led into my use of psychedelic drugs, which and and there were periods where I'd be drinking and periods where I wouldn't. And the periods where I wouldn't, I would be so mean. I was angry, I was frustrated, I was constantly with my partner at the time. He would drink, and I would be like, "Why are you drinking?" I had to constantly monitor what everybody else was like, what they were drinking, how they were drinking. And I just didn't think I had a problem because if I did have a drink, I would prove to myself, like, okay, well, I'm just going to have one. And I would sit there with one the whole night. But I had to tell everybody, I had to tell them, oh, this is only my first one. And at the end, I'd be like, oh my God, look, I still have some left. But all I could think about was, having more, or that feeling, just chasing the feeling. And that was pretty rare. Um, it got pretty bad to where I deluded myself and started doing psychedelic drugs as a form of medicine. And it was like, you don't understand. This is like ceremonial. I'm doing this for enlightenment. And it quickly, became every so often. And then, few times a year, and then if once a month, and then five within like a month, and then and it pretty became clear that I started going into psychosis um over and over and over again. And it was pretty clear from like even when I would be drinking or using early on. I'd forget who I was. um I'd come up with all of these stories. And uh it was pretty quickly, there was a month period where it got so bad. And this is why I think I remember, like, this is a progressive illness. And I went to the ER twice in the manner of like a month. Um, and on the way, I had my mom's friend who was in AA. I called her to take me to the hospital because I was like, I'm dying and all this stuff. And I had this realization when I was asking myself, why am I doing this? Because it was, it was just the same stuff over and over and over again. And I would just always leave feeling awful and miserable. And I had no idea who I was. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? And I was like, oh, well, it's for love. It's to be closer to God. Okay, why is that? Because, oh, well, I want to be enlightened. Well, why is that? Because I don't want to feel my bad feelings anymore. And there it was. And I had to look at myself clearly. And I realized that I was um I was engaging in escapism under the guise of spiritual enlightenment. And I luckily I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I think I'm an addict. Like I think I have a problem." And she's like, "Oh, I know." She's very Russian. She's like, "Oh, I know." And I was like, "What do you mean? No, like what?" And she's like, "Oh, yes, you were high last time I saw you." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." I was like singing in the double K ranch, like thing, like being like, "Oh, I'm just happy. This is all fine and good and normal." But and then I tried to go to a couple NA meetings, and I didn't really find what I was looking for. I couldn't really find the recovery that I was looking for. And, I was talking with my mom and I said, she's just like, go to AA, go to AA. And I was like, I can't, mom. Like, I'm different. And she's like, and she said, oh, yes, Ludmila, you're very different. You just do drugs instead of alcohol. And it just like opened up my mind because I realized that for me, the disease of alcoholism, if it's not alcohol, it's drugs. If it's not drugs, it's people. If it's not people, it's food, it's work, it's shopping, it's anything because ultimately I am not comfortable with where I am and how I feel and being in my own skin. Um, and and I felt like I got a permission slip. My mom has like about 20 years of sobriety and she was like, go to A. And I was so scared. And I, I was walking around. Jim was at my first meeting and I was walking around the nooner and I was so scared to go in. Um, and all I could think was, you know, this cannot be happening. I'm not my mom. I'm not, I'm not an alcoholic. And Jim said, I don't remember quite what he said, but he's like, come on in, like, come sit down. And I sat down, and it was like, for the first time in my life, people were seeing me, and I could hear exactly what I had been experiencing in my head and in my body. And it's like for the first time in my life, I I was home. And I was telling someone, I was like, oh, I didn't really drink. And she was like 50 years fighting. She's like, oh, honey. She's like, I got sober before I even drank. And I like before I even really drank. And there was just this like relief. And the first time I want to read this, the first time um I read the 12 and 12, there's this part in step one. Because my disease and my alcoholism will tell me anything that, I didn't get to a place, I didn't have DUIs, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, I didn't have this, and it will do anything to get me to go back out. Um, and I think that I can know what each of you are thinking about me and being like, oh, she doesn't belong here, she's not. But when I read this, I knew that I belonged. Um, and step one in the 12 and 12, it says, "This is why the first edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, published when our membership was small, dealt with low bottom cases only. Many less desperate alcoholics tried AA but did not succeed because they could not make the admission of hopelessness. It is a tremendous satisfaction to record that in the following years, this changed. Alcoholics who still had their health, their families, their jobs, and even 2 cars in the garage began to recognize their alcoholism. As this trend grew," this is my favorite line ever, and I will die by it, "they were joined by young people who were scarcely more than potential alcoholics. They were spared that last 10 or 15 years of literal hell the rest of us had gone through. Since step one requires an admission that our lives had become unmanageable, how could people such as these take this step? It was obviously necessary to raise the bottom the rest of us has hit to the point where it would hit them. By going back in our own drinking histories, we could show that years before we realized it, we were out of control, that our drinking even then was no mere habit, that it indeed was the beginning of a fatal progression." And to me, that says it all. And to me, that shows me that I belong. I live by that. I'm like, even if I'm not a alcoholic, I am a young alcoholic who's merely and scarcely then a potential alcoholic. Then, damn it, I'll take it. Whatever it takes me to stay here, I'll take it. Um, and yeah, I think for me, um, I quickly I got into program and I sat my butt down and I got a sponsor and then I was like, eh. So I got another sponsor and I was like, eh. I got another sponsor. I was like, eh. All these were my temporary sponsors. I was also in the, oh, I forgot to mention a big part. I spent 10 days in the hospital after my first AA meeting for substance-induced psychosis. And in there had a great time. I think there was like some shared psychosis in there, so that was kind of fun. We were all kind of in our own little world. Um and I was so jazzed. I mean, like I was struggling. I didn't really quite know who I was at the time. I was struggling and um but I remember being like, I'm gonna go to the AA meetings. And I was like one point where I was the only person there and I was like, I'm a freaking alcoholic. And it was like it was just this like relief of like, I have a way out. I have a solution because my entire life I haven't. Um, and I didn't share this, but before I was in Al-Anon for a couple years, and it was really helpful, and I'm really grateful for that program. Um, but I still felt this emptiness, this hole inside me, and I was still using substances to try to escape where I was in my reality. And I remember in the hospital, a friend, I had the big book and she started going through it with me. And my mom was like, just replace all the words alcohol for drugs. Um, and I did. And then I obviously like related with alcohol too, but it was really important for me. Because I can't state that without AA, like I would have killed myself. I wouldn't be here. And the immense fact that I get to belong to this program um is is just a gift that um I cannot ever repay. And I still feel sometimes like, you know, maybe I don't belong, maybe this isn't for me. But honestly, it came to a point where my life is more important than what I think you think of me. And that's crazy. But um yeah, so I got out and I got a permanent sponsor. Well, hopefully permanent. I so far permanent. Um and um people were saying, grab somebody that has what you want, has what you want. And in the meetings, she was talking and she was so confident and like secure in herself. And she was speaking as if like no matter what was happening in the world, she was okay with herself. And I was like, I want that. Like, I want to feel that comfortable in my skin and that okay with my life, that I can suit up and show up and that I can share from my heart. And that's what she's been. Yeah, I started working the steps and just doing it through the Big Book way. And reluctantly, I was like, oh, well, I've already done this in Al-Anon, so like I kind of already know, I kind of already know. And it she had told me, she said, can't remember the exact quote, but Al-Anon is for you know, dealing with like the external in, like dealing with that, and AA is for dealing with the internal out. So like dealing with, I didn't say that right, but whatever, like dealing with yourself. It's dealing with yourself. And I realized like I have never fully soberly um looked at myself and dealt with myself and my reality. Um So yeah, I came in being like, oh, I kind of already got this. I'm a pro, There was a lot of different suggestions. Um, and I did most of them. I did most of them. They said do not get in a relationship in the first year, and I was like, I'm different. I'm different. It's listen. And yeah, I quickly recognized that, instead of like the reason they say that is to develop a connection with your own higher power, develop a connection with yourself, a stability. And, I realized that I got into a pretty unhealthy situation that was back and forth. And I realized, throughout it that I didn't have a good, healthy connection to myself and with my higher power. Um, and for me, I think it was the best thing that could have happened. Like it was really hard and like definitely recommend using that suggestion the first year don't date. But also I'm really grateful because it's shown me that I need to have first and foremost a strong sense and okayness within myself and enough self-esteem, self-respect, self-discipline that I can move forward with love and service and honesty and dignity and discipline rather than from a place of lack and fear and shame and desperation. The reality is that nothing externally is going to fill my infinite sized void within me. Nothing is. And I've heard it said that, we have an infinite sized hole that we try to fill with finite size things. And then I heard another thing which was beautiful to me, which was the infinite sized hole that we think we have doesn't actually exist. It's already full. And I think that's something that I am learning through this program is my higher power hasn't ever not been with me or like I've never not been full or empty. It's just the illusion. And I've lived that way for so long, but I don't need to fill it. It's already full. I need to open myself up and allow that into my life. Because the reality is, I will put anything in front of me and how I feel rather than being with the experience, being in connection with my higher power, and really feeling how I feel. Um, and um, I think for me, the the best thing that I can share is that I'm stalling. One sec, give me a moment. I'm like, let me look really good, like I'm transitioning, but I'm actually just gonna be vulnerable with you guys and just take a second to collect myself because that's what I've been taught in this program is it's okay. Um, yeah. So through this program, I went through the 12 steps. I got a service position. I got multiple service position, multiple service positions. And then there was this moment I remember in my sobriety where, everyone, I kept listening to these speaker tapes and I kept listening to Chuck C and Sandy Beaches or Sandy Beach, I can't remember, whatever, one of them, one of the Sandy B. And, um, and they were talking about like losing yourself. And I was like, what does this mean? I'm so confused. Like it just didn't make sense to me because all I am is full of self. Like this is my whole entire reality is it's me, right? It's me and myself and what I want and what I don't want and how I feel and how I think. And I was so reluctant and resistant to it. And I had this moment where I can't remember what was happening, but I remember the first time that I was doing some form of service, was talking with somebody, I was doing something, and I had this like epiphany. I was like, oh, oh my God. If I'm helping somebody else, I'm not in my own shit. And it like made sense. I was like, because what I had been trying to do my entire life was fix my broken thinking with my broken thinking. And I did not even comprehend that maybe, just maybe, my job isn't to fix myself. Maybe my job is to step aside and allow enough space and room for something bigger than myself and my higher power to do that for me. And to me, that's still a daily thing because I still will get up, I do my prayers and my readings, and I still think, oh, yep, no, it's my job to fix this. It's my job to fix my character defects. But that's not what it says. It doesn't say, where's step 6? It doesn't say, um, yeah, it's 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. It didn't say humbly asked Ludmila to remove our shortcomings. Doesn't say that. And thank God. Thank God it does not say that. Because and that's what I've been doing my whole life is I've been trying to fix me with me. And I think the profound um thing around if I can just maybe surrender and allow things to just start flowing through and start to allow that power. And I don't understand how it works. It doesn't make any sense to me. But if I can just take a step back and allow that to start working my life, somehow things turn out better than I could have imagined. Um, and it started showing out pretty quickly in different moments. I remember freaking out because I couldn't, I had just received notice that my apartment, this was I was pretty newly sober, that the place that I was living, they were selling their house. And I was like flipping my woo. I was not doing well. I was very, very scared. And I was just like trying to like figure it out and figure it out and figure it out. And I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna release this. I applied to this crappy apartment that I didn't want to. And I, was like, I'm just gonna go to a friend's. I went to a friend's house and she said, oh yeah, my apartment is like, has open availability. And I was like, oh, there's no way. There's no way I would get in. That I already applied to this place I didn't want. But I did. I applied and I had to retract my current application. It was like this whole ordeal and it was complete blind faith. And I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. This isn't going to happen. But it all worked out to where I got a place and not to mention at the same time that I had lost my housing, within 2 weeks, I got a housing voucher that was able for me to get the apartment that I have. And it was so synchronous. And yet I still forget those moments every single time. And every single time something falls apart in my life, and every single time things don't go my way, I say, this is the one that's not going to work out. This is the time that my higher power's forgotten about me and life doesn't care, and I'm going to be shriveled up, alone in a corner like a little raisin, and nobody's gonna, nothing's, this is it. This is it. And each time it turns out better than I could have ever imagined. Um, and I think the process of my recovery has been remembering that, because ultimately I have a really good forgetter. I have a really good forgetter. And that's why I need to do work this program every single day. And it's a daily reprieve. This program isn't you know, well, you've graduated, congratulations, you are now done, you are enlightened, welcome. I wish that is how I have lived my whole life. And but it's not. It's me waking up in the morning, and it's doing it's getting on my knees and praying and going to that space of stillness. Um and surrendering and saying, I I give you all of me. I'm surrendering. I'm giving you my grief. I'm giving you my sadness. I'm giving you my joy. I'm giving you my fear. I'm giving you everything. And it's completely for me a program of surrender and of letting go. A part of that has been through sponsorship. I've gotten to sponsor a few women, and this is my third sponsee, and third time's a charm. She seems like she's sticking around. So let's hope. And it has been the greatest gift. I have learned in Alcoholics Anonymous to, no matter how I feel, to show up and do the action anyways. There have been times where I'm like, really, I'm sad and I'm not feeling good, and I don't want to. And I go, all right, that's okay. You get to feel that way. And we're still going to go. And we're still going to do the thing. Because I've learned in this program that you do the action and the feelings will follow. It's not, but that's completely back asswards. Back asswards to me. Because for me, I have always been trying, let me get the feeling, and then the things will follow. The things will happen. But apparently, I have to do the actions and the feelings will follow. And um, sometimes that just means doing the action, even if I don't feel like it. And, and a lot of that means sitting with myself and being with the feeling and being uncomfortable, because the fact of the matter is you're growing up as a teenager and your knees are hurting. Well, you're growing. You're getting stretch marks. Well, you're growing. And that's what is happening in this program and in this life, is all this pain and this hurt. Well, they're the beautiful stretch marks. They're the beautiful veins that get to come up, and they're your muscles expanding and stretching so that I can grow into a tall teenager, I guess. Lack of a better metaphor. English is my second language, I will say that. Anytime this is what I go back to. Yeah, I do want to talk about higher power for a second. Something that's been really hard for me is the concept of a higher power, and what that is, what that means to me. And I think for so long I have had a concept of a higher power that was vengeful or vindictive, and that was pretty comfortable. Like I didn't like it, but that was comfortable. I think the most uncomfortable was when I started having the experience of a higher power and of a God that is indifferent. That was the most uncomfortable for me, because ultimately what I'm so afraid of is that the universe doesn't care, is that it created itself and um I'm its creations and it doesn't care about me. And for me, that's where my disease is. That's where my alcoholism lies. And that's when I go into my selfish and self-seeking and frightened ways, is because I, and really my sponsor says it, really it's egotism. You know, I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, because what it is I believe that I'm so special, important, that I am the person that that the entire universe and creation and God doesn't care about. And the for me to take a step aside and look at my ego and say, you know what? Um, maybe, just maybe I could be wrong about this. Maybe I could have an experience with something that could care about me and love me and want the best for me. And that's foreign because, um, you know, growing up as a little kid, that was not my experience. That was not what I had learned. And so now, being in Alcoholics Anonymous, developing a connection and asking myself these three questions, which I heard, which just blew my mind. One, could there be something of higher intelligence than me? And I'm like, okay, maybe. Sounds good, maybe. Sure. There could be. We'll allow it. Yeah, I can get behind that. I can get behind that for sure. I'm like, that makes sense. Okay. Two, now if it's of higher intelligence than me, and if it's, you know, creation and it created everything and it's creating itself and it's this an infinite vast thing, could it possibly care about me because I am its creation? And I'm like, oh, maybe it could care about me. Maybe this higher intelligence and this creation could actually care about me. And then three, could I have a relationship with it? Could I have connection and communication with it? And um, for me, that's where step 11 has been just phenomenal, because for me, God doesn't come to me and say, and this is your next action, and this is what you shall do, and this is what is right. If that is how your higher power works, that is awesome. Wow. Your higher power comes to you and just that's amazing. And for me, that hasn't been the case. It's pretty easy that, or it's pretty noticeable that my ego will come in and it will sound like that. It'll be like, and Ludmila, and this is now what you shall do, and this is the right action. And I go, oh, hi there. Hey there, little ego. But it does that. It has a really good sense of trying to do that. Um and but for me, through the prayer meditation, I'm finding more and more, and I'm still just a baby in this program. I just have oh yeah, 16 months today. Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, um, and I'm still a baby in this program, but I am finding that, you know, my higher power isn't what I think it is. I hear it in your shares. I hear it in nature. I hear it in music. I hear it in the stillness when I'm quiet. And it's this feeling and this knowing, and it's this unconditional presence. It's not a fortune teller. It's not Santa Claus, even though I really wish it was. That would be so cool. Um, um, but what it is it's this loving presence that says, hey, I might not give you what you want right now, but I'm going to give you what you need. I'm going to give you what you deserve. And what you deserve is love and beauty and joy and peace. And so while I might take some things right now that you feel are just that you need and you want so desperately, those aren't meant for you. but I'm doing it because there is so much more, and there is so much better that is you are going to be able to be of service, and you're going to be able to be in joy and peace and serenity, and that things are going to turn out better than you could have ever imagined. And for me, that is the daily, continual process of handing my life and my will over to a care of God as I understand it. That's what it is to me, is it's saying, okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe, maybe the next right action is to pause and to pray. Maybe it's to get on my knees. And that's been another thing. I've been praying, but when I get on my knees, something weird happens. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But there is this complete surrender and this peace that comes into me around just, and it feels like a relationship with my creator, a relationship of just, I am fully allowing and submitting what is needed, and I get this strange quiet stillness and presence that I'm still like, what? What is that? And I started praying on my knees. And I think for me, this program is is a way of life. And for me, what I want to leave you with is the disease of alcoholism is not how much you drank or how often you drank, but for me it's what happens when I drink, and it's why I drink. Am I looking for the feeling? Am I trying to get something outside of me to change how I feel, to be different than it is? Am I looking for something external to fulfill me? And um, I I haven't found anything on God's green earth that has externally that can fill that infinite size hole besides infinity and the fullness that's already in there, and God and higher power. I just haven't. And the beautiful blessing of that is through the fellowship and through all of you, I get to see God in each one of your eyes. And one of my favorite quotes is, you're all God in drag. And I love that so much because I see God each and every one of you. And it's phenomenal because you saved my life, and you have saved my life. And I'm so grateful. I am so grateful that you've allowed me into this program. And I'm forever, forever indebted to Alcoholics Anonymous. Everything that I earn, every penny that I have, everything that I have is owed to this program. Because without it, I would be dead. And that's not an exaggeration. I would be dead if I was drinking or using, or I would be dead sober. But either way, I would have killed myself. And I hate to use that so drastically, but that is so true. And so thank you for allowing me, even though I might just be a young person who is scarcely more than a potential alcoholic. And yeah, with that, I love you all.